All right. So before we get going on the template, I want to go over some terminology with you. And when you do anything for print, you will usually be given three dimensions on here. One is the trim size. Uh, Commercial printing doesn't work like, your desktop printer where you print one sheet of paper at a time. For all commercial printers, what they will do is they print on sheets of paper that are as big as the New York poster on the wall over there. So they would take your design here and gang it up as many times as they can to fit on one of those huge sheets of paper, and then they will trim it all out. So because of that, that's why it's called the trim size. That's the actual size you're going to be working with. The next dimension you're given is the bleed size. And you'll notice on all the templates, there's this little red outline. Traditionally, it's usually about an eighth of an inch. For some projects, it may need to be larger. And what that is for is because even in our digital age where everything seems precision, when it comes to trimming stuff out with knives and machines, it's not always exact. And so what the bleed size is let me put a color in here, and I'll show this on the demo here. Let's do blue here. So if you have anything on your page that you want to um, actually touch the edges of the page when it's trimmed out, you need to extend it. Oh, this is driving me crazy. I'm gonna have to reboot this because it's too. If you have anything, so this could be a photo, it could be a background color like this blue. If you want it to actually touch the edges of the page like this, you actually have to extend it out that extra half inch. That way, if it's slightly off when they trim it, which it oftentimes is, it may only be by a millimeter or two, but it's still going to leave you with a weird white edge on here. So that's why anything you want to touch the edge of the page. So it can be a background color, it could be a background pattern, and I'll show you how to make patterns, or it could be photography or imagery on there. You just need to extend it. So you have those three sides. And then the last one you're given is we call this lot, we call it either the live area or the type safety area. In Adobe, they refer to it as the margin. What this is a little boundary, and in Adobe, it's magenta, but you don't want any critical information. So if you're, uh, type from a magazine article or you're doing stationery, you don't want to get addresses and phone numbers too close to the edge, just in case it is trimmed out awkwardly. You're not going to lose any uh, critical information. So you will see these, they're not labeled, but just so you know that the outside one is the bleed, the inside one is the live area on here. So knowing that, let us go to, I'm gonna hang on here. I always forget this, that when I turn the projector on, it blows everything up. So, all right, better. I am gonna use my Hornet logo here, and I'm gonna pull up the template. So here is the template. And like I said, you'll see all the guidelines on here. Each piece has the red bleed. So if you have border colors or something, and I'll show you how that works, you want them to extend to that red bleed line. Um, like I said, part of your job on here is to follow the directions. All right. So here's the thing. Once you understand that the red lines are bleed lines and that the blue lines are type safety, and on your stationery, this whole gray area, you should kind of keep clear because that's where a letter would go. You can extend it out. If all your information is at the top, you can have a much clearer area. If you want to do stuff down the side, you can still do that and still have a smaller area over here. But what I'm looking for is when you turn this in, if you come over here under layers, here are all the guidelines and they're locked. You can turn those off, all right? Or you can delete them as they go, and I'll probably do that. You should probably be working on the top layer, which is your design. So I'm going to unlock that. Um, and as we go through here, here's the envelope. Same thing. Once you understand what areas you have to keep clean, you can delete this. All right. Here's where the barcode goes. Here is where you're either going to handwrite the address you're sending it to or put a stickered address. So you obviously don't want to put your logo there if it's going to be stickered over. And as I mentioned, the postal metering. Then here you have the business cards. I've given you a horizontal set or a vertical set. You can choose one or the other. You don't have to do all four of these, all right? Can you mix and match and have your logo be horizontal on one side and all the information be vertical? You can do that if you want to. Most people would just stick, because if you're holding it one way to look at one side, you want people to just be able to flip it over without having to rotate it to read everything. But that doesn't mean that you can't use it. Part of your design on here, please take this is all placeholder information, all right? What I want to see you do is um, don't use 123 Main Street, Anytown, USA, or Anytown, California. Like I said, if you can find the actual address of something, you can do it. Please don't also use the same default font. So everything in Adobe defaults to Myriad. I want to see that you gave some thought to it and that you have chosen a font that reflects your logo and the branding you want to do on here. The last three pages on here are going to be for photo mockups. And don't worry about that. I'll give you a brief example on it. If you want to play around with it, you can, but we're probably not going to we won't dive into Photoshop fully till we come back from break here. So to do this, it looks like a lot of work, but the reality is if you solve the problems here as far as type and everything, then um, you can just copy and paste this basically on the other elements on here. So for this, I'm going to be using my Hornet logo that I did, and I'm going to do what I did before and idiot proof it. So I'm going to outline all the type. I'm going to outline all the strokes. I'm going to make sure everything is grouped together so I don't lose it. And I'm going to take it down small here, and I'll just copy it. Now I'm going to go over to my branding template. All right, so I unlocked the guides. Once you understand the rules here, you can delete this. I know this has to be kept clear, so I'm going to keep it clear. Coming up here, I'm going to delete my stupid logo, and I'm going to paste the college logo in there. Do you have to put it here? No. I'll show you some other options on here. Here's where you have to come into some design. Don't use Myriad. I need to find a font that's going to work with my Hornet logo here. And what I'll probably do is pick the font that Fullerton College is in, because then it will tie together. So I remember from experience that is called Baskerville. So there's Baskerville. And this is where you're going to, if you can, put the real address in. California. Nine two eight three two. How do you do your phone numbers? That's completely up to you. I tend to do it this way with just periods, so you can do that. Um, you can do it the traditional way where you bracket the area code and use a hyphen between it. It's entirely up to you. And then we can put, all right, now it's up to you also what size to do this. It defaults to 12 point type. I believe it's 12 point. Let's see. 12 point type can actually look a little big on there. For most printed stuff, kind of the sweet spot for text is either 9, 10, or 11 point type. So I'm going to come over here and make it 10 point type. But as I mentioned, part of your job here is going to be deciding what is important, what's not important, what's most important. In this day and age, probably the website is going to be more important. So you could select this and you have a couple options. How do you make it more important? Well, you could choose a bolder version of the font to make it stand out. You could choose an italic version of it, probably do bold italic. You could conceivably make it a little bigger if you wanted to, but one way or another, you want to make sure that this stands out from everything else. Here are the three um, social media icons that I've given you. Like I said, if you want to get others, I can show you how we can get TikTok or whatever. I'm sorry, I refuse to use X for Twitter. But you can, when you use the logos as vectors flat like this, you're not required to use their colors. So you don't have to use Facebook blue or Twitter blue or whatever color they use. It's going to be up to you. What I may do is to get things to stand together, I may pick up one of the colors from my logo. So I grabbed the little eyedropper tool and I picked up that blue. So you see a lot of companies do this where the logo's in the upper left-hand corner. And the reason for that is in Western culture, that's how we read top to bottom, left to right. So it makes that upper left corner really important. Do you have to put the logo there? No. Here, I'm going to put it in the center. And maybe I'll take my type. And we haven't really had to use this yet, but we're going forward, we're going to be using some more type tools. One of the type tools that we use is how we do the paragraphs on here. So if you notice when I selected this, you have some options up here, and we'll talk about some other options too. You have a few more options with both type and with the orientation or the paragraph. If you come over here and open up the type character panel, it usually launches with a paragraph option here. And either way, so I had it flush left. That means everything lines up on the left. You could also do it centered. All right. Or you can do it flush right, where everything lines up on the right. There's another way to do it if you use the paragraph option here, which we call justified. I don't think that's going to work with this little amount of text here, but for this option, what I'm going to do is take all my information and instead of have it on 3 lines, I'm going to just put it on one and I'm going to center it here. And maybe I just put my social media icon centered under here. That could be an option. All right. How about I actually add some color to this? So I am going to, again, the school colors are blue and gold. So what if I do a big blue bar up here and I'm going to send it to the back? All right. So here's an example where you have to take advantage of the bleed on here. If I want this blue bar behind my logo to touch the top and the sides, this is where you need to take it out to that bleed line. Does all the information have to hang together? No, if I wanted to, I could move all this information down to the bottom. Or I could put the social media icons down here and put this information. So there's no laws on any of this. It's just as, keep in mind, you just have to be able to see the information. Here's another option. What if I don't put this at the top? What if I drop a blue bar down the left side here and make sure you leave enough white space so people can write a letter? What if I put the logo here? As long as it doesn't cross that blue line, I should be good. Now I can take all this information. I'm going to put it in blue on top of the blue, so it's probably going to have to be white so that it reads. And obviously one line isn't going to work here. So in this case, I'm going to break up the information, do it flush left here. And again, break it up. When you break up information, you want it to make sense on here. So I wouldn't break up the street name. I wouldn't break up that. You know, you could choose to set this off a little bit more. And we haven't really had to work with this, but when you want to adjust the spacing between lines of type, maybe what I'm going to do is really break these apart a little bit more. If you open the character panel, like I said, you have more options than you would up here in the control panel at the top. One of them is you can control the leading. That's the space between lines. So you could maybe set those off a little bit, and then don't forget my social media icons down here. School colors are blue and gold. Maybe I do that. All right. One other option, and I showed you this in the lecture. What if I take my logo and I want to create a watermark with it? I can put my logo really big back there. Obviously, I wouldn't be able to print a letter over it, but what if I come up here and adjust the opacity and take it down to like 20%? So the logo's there, but I can still print a letter over it. You'll notice I had my logo bleed off the edge here. That's kind of the look I'm going for on it. So once you have all this information, it should be pretty easy to do the other elements here. You want everything to kind of hang together. So again, once you understand what areas need to be kept clear, go ahead and delete that. And then you can delete all this. Here, what I'm going to do is just copy all of this. I'm going to just hold an Option key down and drag off a copy here.
To make it bleed over and you want it intentionally to do that?
Yeah.
Is there a way to tell where it's gonna, like where it hits the red is where it's gonna drop off at, or?
On the stationery, the trim is where the white board ends. So the edge of the paper, when it's printed, ideally, the S will hit the edge of the paper right there. If it's trimmed out a little off, then it doesn't like leave me a white edge there. Like I said, I just copied everything here. And I'm going to bring it down here to my envelope. So that's what when you do the letterhead up top, you can usually just copy things. You could even do the same thing here if I take my logo and put it here and then ghost it back again. This you could do. You just want to make sure you avoid that barcode area. If there are any letters or numbers, go into that. I think it's about 5/8 of an inch from the bottom. It will screw up the machines and it'll kick the letter out. So as long as you avoid that, but yeah, you could put it back here because I could still write an address over this or a sticker over it. Maybe if it's going to be stickered, I'll put it off to the edge like that. One other option you have on here too is the flap. So on the flap, the actual gray line is going to be the trim line on here. That's where it's going to be cut. So if you want to do anything, it needs to go to the red bleed line up here. So what I could do is maybe I make the flap blue. And what I'm going to do is take all this information. Maybe I'll get rid of the blue bar there. And I'll put this back onto one line. And can I do this? What can you see a problem being? Yeah, it's going to be upside down because when you lick the flap and you close it, anything on there is going to be upside down. So if you did want to do that, you could just rotate this 180 degrees. So that could be an option on there. I'll show you one other thing, and this is going to show you the pattern making function for Illustrator. I'm just backing this up a little bit to get to my old design. There we go. Um, Oftentimes you'll see people work with pattern, and I'll show you. If I go back here to my Hornet logo, it's easier to show you this clean like this. Um, what you can do is, I showed you in the lecture, people either take their logo or parts of their logo and turn it into a pattern. So if I select my Hornet logo, come up here under Object and come down here to Pattern and do Make. And immediately it will add this pattern into your swatches. Hit OK. You have a control panel here. There's my original logo. I can still work on this while I'm opening. So maybe I want to make it even smaller, or maybe I want to rotate it. You can do that. There are different ways you can do it. This is just a standard grid. You could do it kind of in an offset brick pattern that either goes horizontally by row or vertically by columns up here. You can also use what we call a hexagon grid, which lays everything out. You can see the hexagon shape here. So it's almost like a honeybee, and you can do it either orientation. You can also down here control spacing on here. So if I want it spaced out a little bit more, you can do that. The one thing that's kind of a pain with the pattern option here is when you get something you like, you want to come up here and do save a copy, and I'll just call it when you hit OK, it's going to add this new pattern into your swatches up here. The only thing that's kind of a pain with the pattern option, you can't just close out of this. I think it's the only function in Illustrator where you have to do this. You actually have to go back to the little hamburger menu and hit exit. And now if you do that, any enclosed shape will have your logo in it. All right. Doesn't have to be the whole logo if you can break parts apart, as long as it's an enclosed shape. So you can use your friend the pen tool and do that as well. So, like I said, this could be an option. I'm going to see if this works today because it didn't yesterday. But if I take my back flap shape, if you wanted to, like I said, you could just put a color back there, or you could put this pattern that I just made on there. But what's the problem with that? Same thing as with the address. When I close the flap, it's going to be upside down. What you need to do is, let's see if it happens today. if I take this shape, rotate it 180 degrees first, so it's up right reading here. Now, if I fill it with the pattern, theoretically, I should be able to turn this back, but I think what you have to do is one extra step up here, and you have to expand it. And now when you go to rotate it, it should be upside down. So do you want to do that? That's going to be up to you. If you want to play around with it, you can. The last things on here that I wanted to show you are the business cards. And same thing with everything here. Once you understand the rules here, you can delete all this information. Please don't turn anything in with John Doe. All right. Or with the fake address or everything. Make something up. If you leave this information in there, even if you do the most beautiful job, when someone looks at your portfolio, they're going to think it's a student project. And that's what you don't want people to think on here. So what you can do is decide, I'm going to do the vertical logos. So I'm going to delete everything here. If you want to actually delete these artboards, you can. There is an artboard tool over here. And if you click on it, if you click on any artboard, you can just hit the delete key and get rid of them. It won't get rid of the guidelines, but they're not going to print or show up in your document. And then again, here's the challenge on this one is, and I'm just going to copy all the stuff that I did down here and I'll bring it up here. So how you want to do this is completely up to you. I'm going to get rid of the placeholder logo. All right, if I put the blue background on here, again, it needs to go to the red bleed line on here. All right, otherwise, these get trimmed out off. These are very common to be trimmed out slightly off because they are so small. So maybe what I'll do, I'm going to get rid of, let's pull this off so I remember what information I need on here. I'm going to get rid of this. So what I want to do is just have the Hornet logo on that side. I'm going to move all the information down here. And again, now I have to add some information in here. So I'll make this a business card for me. This is where it sucks having a really long last name. Uh, I'll put my title in there. How do you think people would most likely reach out to me in this day and age? Do you think they're going to write me a letter? Do you think they're going to call me? You would be surprised. The answer is no. I get very few phone calls. I mostly get email. Then looking at this information, probably the phone number would be next, and then the physical address, and I've got the website on there. So this is really the challenge where you have to decide what order. If everything is the same size and weight, then nothing's important. So because this is a business card, what I'm going to do is make my name probably a little bit bigger. So here's where you need to pull out that type character panel. So how can I make my name a little bit more important? I could make it bigger, right? I could change the color, or I could also make it bolder. Or in this case, maybe I want to be super special and go italic. Could that work? That's going to be up to you. So I'm going to make it a little bigger, not because I have a huge ego, but just to show you. Here's my title. How important is that? Do you think? To some people, it's super important. To me, not so much. So I'm going to make it smaller. Probably don't want to go lower than 8. But if I also want to make it seem a little important, I could come up here to type and come down here and change it. All right. That makes it look super important. If I want to make it look really important, I can space it out a little bit here too. Um, so these are the two ways that people are most likely going to contact me. So I'm going to set this off a little bit with the leading. And because this is probably the primary way people are going to reach out to me, again, I can make it a little heavier, a little bigger. I'll probably go with a little bolder. That seems kind of chunky, so maybe I'll keep it bold, but I'll make it a little smaller. I have this now at 9 point, so I'll probably make this at 9 point as well. And then you come down here. No one is going to write me a letter. I guarantee you that. So this can go much smaller. And I'll probably leave the web address there. So did I leave anything out? I've got the website, I've got the physical address, I've got email, I've got phone number, I've got title. So that's going to be up to you how you put this on here. I also still have my social media icons that I could do. Those seem really big. You can make them down smaller again. You know, if I want to be consistent, I could put a blue background on this one and then just make all my type white. So there's a lot of different ways you could do this. I could also decide to use that pattern I made. And then in this case, then I would have to put the logo uh, on here with all the type. Let me snag another one here. All right. So in this case, I'll have to close up all these gaps to make room for the logo and work on the spacing here. You know, maybe on this one, I do all the type flush left. That could be an option. Put my logo up here and make it smaller. So it's going to be up to you how you do this. You know, could I do it flush right? Yes. There is other options. We'll talk more about this. It's not really going to work, but there's a fourth way of laying this type out we call justified. And yeah, I don't think it's going to work for this, but when we get into the magazine assignment, I'll show you that. And then finally, and I just want to show you this so you have an idea of what we're going to do. I will give you a bunch of Photoshop mockups, but like I said, if you can find a site online that has them as well, what you can do, I'm going to grab my logo here and make it a little bit bigger. So I opened two of them and I'll just show you how this works. Like I said, we're not going to really get into Photoshop today. I'm going to copy that. So the way these mockups work is someone has gone in and figured out the lighting and the warp effects and everything to make stuff look realistic on here. And so with this one, you can change the color of the lid if you want to. Here's the cup itself. And the way this works is if you open each of these files, you'll see a file somewhere that says your image here. And if you double click on it, you'll get their mocked up designs on here. If you want to, you can just turn the eyeball off on this, and then where it says your design here, you can just paste your logo in here. So I just copied my logo, and you're going to want to paste it in as pixels, and then maybe size this the way it is. Now, the reason you double clicked on this is basically a file within a file. So if you like the look of this, maybe what you want to do is put a color back here. Let's see what color I can put back here. Uh, let's choose a blue for the school, I guess. So once you get your design how you liked, what you have to do is then come over here and hit save. You can do Command S. You're saving this file within a file. So once you do that, you can actually just click out of this, and there you'll be able to put your graphics on a lot of different things. And it's going to be different for each of you. I'm pretty sure everyone's going to want to do apparel. Same thing, you open this up where it says t-shirt. Here you can see they did all the lighting effects for you. Here you can change the color of the t-shirt if you want to. If you double click on this, let's give him a blue. And then where it says your image here, you just have to double click on this. That's where you're opening the file within a file. You can turn off their design and paste your design in here. Don't know why it went in so small, but it did. One thing to keep in mind about doing apparel, and I'll show you this. Again, this is a file within a file, so you have to save it, not save as. This you just save, and then you close out of it, and you can put it on there. Here's the only thing people forget when they're putting their graphics onto apparel. When someone puts a t-shirt on, it is not flat anymore. It is wrapping around someone's body. There is a tendency to put your logos on apparel really large like this, in which case it starts disappearing into everyone's armpits. So if it looks like you put it on there a little too big, no problem. You just double click on this and it'll take you back to this. You can shrink it down a little bit. And again, resave it. So save this file within a file and delete it, and then it will be smaller on there. I will go much more into Photoshop after the break. If you've worked with Photoshop before and you want to do that, what you're going to do is create 3 of these. If you want to do more, I'll give you extra credit for it. So definitely do some apparel. You can do ball caps, you can do hoodies, and then things that are specific to your brand or your company. So if it's a restaurant, maybe like I said, menu covers. If it's if you want to put it on packaging, if you want to put it on shopping bags, knapsacks, there's a lot of different options you have. Maybe you want to put it on a delivery van or the side of a building or etched in glass on a storefront. There's a lot of options, and I can help you find what you need for it. All right, so that's it. Went a little longer than I expected. Go ahead and take a break. And if you want, you can dive in and start working on the stationery, maybe get that underway before we leave for break. It's not due. Let me check the assignment here. I have this due on April. I would do April 16th. So, in the scheme of things, we are here. We're going on spring break. For this week, when you come back, you'll have a week and a half to work on it. We will probably have a work in progress crit to see where everyone's at on the 9th. All right. And everything is due the day after we all pay our taxes. All right. Any questions on any of that? All right. Go ahead, take a break, hang out and start working on this. And if you have any questions, I'll come around and help you.